School of Management Studies IGNOU presents an audiobook on the course MMPC 005 Quantitative Analysis for Managerial Applications for MBA program. Block 4 Forecasting Methods. Unit 13 Business Forecasting.
After completing this unit, you should be able to realize that forecasting is a scientific discipline unlike ad hoc predictions. Appreciate that forecasting is essential for a variety of planning decisions. Become aware of forecasting methods for long, medium, and short-term decisions. Use moving averages and exponential smoothing for demand forecasting. Understand the concept of forecast control and use the moving range chart to monitor a forecasting system. Introduction. Data on demands of the market may be needed for a number of purposes to assist an organization in its long-term, medium, and short-term decisions. Forecasting is essential for a number of planning decisions and often provides a valuable input on which future operations of the business enterprise depend. Some of the areas where forecasts of future product demand would be useful are: number 1, specification of production targets as functions of time. Number 2, planning equipment and manpower usage as well as additional procurement. Number 3, budget allocation depending on the level of production and sales. Number 4, determination of the best inventory policy. Number 5, decisions on expansion and major changes in production processes and methods. Number 6, future trends of product development, diversification, scrapping, etc. Number 7, design of suitable pricing policy. And number 8, planning the methods of distribution and sales promotion. It is thus clear that the forecast of demand of a product serves as a vital input for a number of important decisions, and it is therefore necessary to adopt a systematic and rational methodology for generating reliable forecast. The uncertain future. The future is inherently uncertain, and since time immemorial, man has made attempts to unravel the mystery of the future. In the past, it was the crystal gazer or a person allegedly in possession of some supernatural powers who would make predications about the things to be major events or the rise and fall of kings. In today's world, predictions are being made daily in the realm of business, industry, and politics. Since the operation of any capital enterprise has a large lead time, that is 1 to 5 years is typical, it is clear that a factory conceived today is for some future demand, and the whole operation is dependent on the actual demand coming up to the level projected much earlier. During this period, many circumstances which might not even have been imagined could come up. For instance, there could be development of other industries or a major technological breakthrough that may render the originally conceived product obsolete, or a social upheaval and change of government may redefine priorities of growth and development, or an unusual weather condition like drought or floods may alter completely the buying potential of the originally conceived market. This is only a partial list to suggest how uncertainties from a variety of sources can enter to make the task of prediction of the future extremely difficult. It is proper at this stage to emphasize the distinction between prediction and forecasting. Forecasting generally refers to the scientific methodology that often uses past data along with some well-defined assumptions or model to come up with a forecast of future demand. In that sense, forecasting is objective. A prediction is a subjective estimate made by an individual by using his intuitive hunch, which may in fact come out true. But the fact that it is subjective, which means A's prediction may be different from B's and C's, and non-realizable, as a well-documented computer program which could be used by anyone deprives it of much value. This is not to discount the role of intuition or subjectivity in practical decision making. In fact, for complex, long-term decisions, intuitive methods such as the Delphi technique are most popular. The opinion of a well-informed, educated person is likely to be reliable, reflecting the well-considered contribution of a host of complex factors in a relationship that may be difficult to explicitly quantify. Often forecasts are modified based on subjective judgment and experience to obtain predictions used in planning and decision making. The future is inherently uncertain, and any forecast at best is an educated guess with no guarantee of coming true. In certain purely deterministic systems, as for example in classical physics, the laws governing the motion of celestial bodies are fairly well developed, and an unequivocal relationship between cause and effect has been clearly established, and it is possible to predict very accurately the course of events in the future once the future patterns of causes are inferred from past behavior. Economic systems, however, are more complex because, number one, there is a large number of governing factors in a complex structural framework which may not be possible to identify, and number two, the individual factors themselves have a high degree of variability and uncertainty. The demand for a particular product, say umbrellas, would depend on competitors' prices, advertising campaigns, weather conditions, population, and a number of factors which might even be difficult to identify. In spite of these complexities, a forecast has to be made so that the manufacturers of umbrellas, a product which exhibits a seasonal demand, can plan for the next season. Forecasting for planning decisions. The primary purpose of forecasting is to provide valuable information for planning the design and operation of the enterprise. Planning decisions may be classified as long-term, medium-term, and short-term. Long-term decisions include decisions like plant expansion or new product introduction, which may require new technologies or a complete transformation in social or moral fabric of society. Such decisions are generally characterized by lack of quantitative information and absence of historical data on which to base the forecast of future events. Intuition and the collected opinion of experts in the field generally play a significant role in developing forecasts for such decisions. Medium-term decisions involve such decisions as planning the production levels in a manufacturing plant over the next year, determination of manpower requirements, or inventory policy for the firm. Short-term decisions include daily production planning and scheduling decisions. For both medium and short-term forecasting, many methods and techniques exist. These methods can be broadly classified as number 1, subjective or intuitive methods. Number 2, methods based on averaging of past data, including simple, weighted, and moving averages. Number 3, regression models on historical data. Number 4, casual or econometric models. And number 5, time series analysis or stochastic models. Forecasting for long-term decisions. Technological forecasting. Technological growth is often haphazard, especially in developing countries like India. This is because technology seldom evolves and there are frequent technology transfers due to imports of know-how, resulting in a leapfrogging phenomenon. In spite of this, it is generally seen that logarithms of many technological variables show linear trends with time, showing exponential growth. Some extrapolations reported by Rohatgi are: number 1, passenger kilometers carried by Indian Airlines; number 2, fertilizer applied per hectare of cropped area; number 3, demand and supply of petroleum crude; and number 4, installed capacity of electricity generation in millions of kilowatt. The use of S-curves in forecasting technological growth is also common. Rather than implying unchecked growth, there is a limit to growth. Thus, the growth rate of technology is slow to begin with owing to initial problems. It reaches a maximum when the technology becomes stable and popular, and finally declines till the technology becomes obsolete and is replaced by a newer alternative. Some examples of the use of S-curves as reported by Rohatgi are: number 1, hydroelectric power generation using Gumpert's growth curve, and number 2, number of villages electrified using a Pearl-type growth curve. Apart from these extrapolative techniques, which are based on the projection of historical data into the future, technological forecasting often implies prediction of future scenarios or likely possible futures. Delphi. This is a subjective method relying on the opinion of experts designed to minimize bias and error of judgment. A Delphi panel consists of a number of experts with an impartial leader or coordinator who organizes the questions. Specific questions rather than general opinions with yes, no, or multiple type answers or specific dates or events are sought from the experts. For instance, questions could be of different kinds, like number 1, when do you think the petroleum reserves of the country would be exhausted? 2020, 2040, or 2060? These are the options given. Number 2, when would the level of pollution in Delhi exceed danger limit as defined by a particular agency? Number 3, what would the population of India be in 2020, 2040 and 2060? Number 4, when would fiber optics become a commercial viability for communication? A summary of the responses of the participants is sent to each expert participating in the Delphi panel after a statistical analysis. For a forecast when an event is likely to happen, the most optimistic and pessimistic estimates along with the distribution of other responses is given to the participant. On the basis of this information, the experts may like to revise their earlier estimates and give revised estimates to the coordinator. It may be mentioned that the identities of the experts are not revealed to each other so that bias or influence by reputation is kept to a minimum. Also, the feedback response is statistical in nature without revealing who made which forecast. The Delphi method is an iterative procedure in which revisions are carried out by the experts till the coordinator gets a stable response. The method is very efficient if properly conducted, as it provides a systematic framework for collecting expert opinion. By virtue of anonymity, statistical analysis and feedback of results, and provision for forecast revision, results obtained are free of bias and generally reliable. Obviously, the background of the experts and their knowledge of the field is crucial. This is where the role of the coordinator in identifying the proper experts is important. Opinion polls. Opinion polls are a very common method of gaining knowledge about consumer taste, responses to a new product, popularity of a person or leader, reactions to an election result, or the likely future prime minister after the impending polls. In any opinion poll, two things are of primary importance. First, the information that is sought, and secondly, the target population from whom the information is sought. Both these factors must be kept in mind while designing the appropriate mechanism for conducting the opinion poll. Opinion polls may be conducted through number 1, personal interviews, number 2, circulation of questionnaires, number 3, meetings in groups, and number 4, conferences, seminars, and symposia. The method adopted depends largely on the population, the kind of information desired, and the budget available. For instance, if information from a very large number of people is to be collected, a suitably designed questionnaire could be mailed to the people concerned. Designing a proper questionnaire is itself a major task. Care should be taken to avoid ambiguous questions. Preferably, the responses should be short one-word answers or ticking an appropriate reply from a set of multiple choices. This makes the questionnaire easy for the respondent to fill and also easy for the analyst to analyze. For example, the final analysis could be summarized by saying, number 1, 80% of the population expressed opinion A. Number 2, 10% expressed opinion B. Number 3, 5% expressed opinion C. Number 4, 5% expressed no opinion. Similarly, in the context of forecasting of product demand, it is common to arrive at the sales forecast by aggregating the opinion of area salesmen. The forecast could be modified based on some kind of rating for each salesman or an adjustment for environmental uncertainties. Decisions in the area of future R&D or new technologies too are based on the opinions of experts. The Delphi method treated in this section is just an example of a systematic gathering of opinion of experts in the concerned field. The major advantage of opinion polls lies in the fact that a well-formed opinion considers the multifarious subjective and objective factors which may not even be possible to enumerate explicitly, and yet they may have a bearing on the concerned forecast or question. Moreover, the aggregation of opinion polls tend to eliminate the bias that is bound to be present in any subjective human evaluation. In fact, for long-term decisions, opinion polls of opinions of the experts constitute a very reliable method for forecasting and planning. Forecasting for medium and short-term decisions. Forecasting for the medium and short-term horizons from 1 to 6 months ahead is commonly employed for production planning, scheduling, and financial planning decisions in an organization. These methods are generally better structured as compared to the models for long-term forecasting treated in the previous section, as the variables to be forecast are well known and often historical data is available to guide in the making of a more reliable forecast. Broadly speaking, we can classify these methods into 5 categories. Number 1. Subjective or intuitive methods. Number 2. Methods based on an averaging of past data, that is moving average and exponential smoothing. Number 3. Regression models on historical data. Number 4. Casual or econometric models. And number 5. Stochastic models with time series analysis and Box-Jenkins model. Subjective or intuitive methods. These methods rely on the opinion of the concerned people and are quite popular in practice. Top executives, salesmen, distributors, and consumers could all be approached to give an estimate of the future demand of a product, and a judicious aggregation or adjustment of these opinions could be used to arrive at the forecast of future demand. Committees or even a Delphi panel could be constituted for the purpose. However, all such methods suffer from individual bias and subjectivity. Moreover, the underlying logic of forecast generation remains mysterious, for it relies entirely on the intuitive judgment and experience of the forecaster. It cannot be documented and programmed for use on a computer, so that no matter whether A or B or C makes the forecast, the result is the same. The other categories of methods discussed in the section are characterized by well-laid procedures so that documentation and computerization can be easily done. However, subjective and intuitive methods have their own advantages. The opinion of an expert or an experienced salesman carries with it the accumulated wisdom of experience and maturity, which may be difficult to incorporate in any explicit mathematical relationship developed for purposes of forecasting. Moreover, in some instances where no historical data is available, for example, forecasting the sales of a completely new product or new technology, relies on opinions of persons in research and development, marketing, or other functional areas may be the only method available to forecast and plan future operations. Methods based on averaging of past data or moving averages and exponential smoothing. In many instances, it may be reasonable to forecast the demand for the next period by taking the average demand till date. Similarly, when the next period demand actually becomes known, it would be used in making the forecast of the next future period. However, rather than using the entire past history in determining the average, only the recent data for the past 3 or 6 months may be used. This is the idea behind the moving average, where only the demand of the recent couple of periods, that is, the number of periods being specified, is used in making a forecast. Exponential smoothing is an averaging technique where the weightage given to the past data declines at an exponential rate as the data recedes into the past. Thus, all the values are taken into consideration, unlike in moving averages where all data points prior to the period of the moving averages are ignored. Both moving averages and smoothing methods are essentially short-term forecasting techniques where one or a few period-ahead forecasts are obtained. Regression models on historical data. The demand of any product or service when plotted as a function of time yields a time series whose behavior may be conceived as of a certain pattern with random fluctuations. The basic approach in this method is to identify an underlying pattern and to fit a regression line to demand history by available statistical methods. The method of least squares is commonly used to determine the parameters of the fitted model. Forecasting by this technique assumes that the underlying system of chance causes which was operating in the past would continue to operate in the future as well. The forecast would thus not be valid under abnormal conditions like wars, earthquakes, depression, or other natural calamities like floods or drought, which might drastically affect the variable of interest. Casual or econometric models. In casual models, an attempt is made to consider the cause-effect relationships and the variable of interest, for example demand, is modeled as a function of these casual variables. For instance, in trying to forecast the demand of tires of a particular kind in a certain month, say DTM, it would be reasonable to assume that this is influenced by the targeted production of new vehicle for that month, TPVM, and the total road mileage of existing vehicle in the past 6 months, say, which could be assumed to be proportional to sales of petrol in the last 6 months, that is SPL6M. Thus, one possible model to forecast the monthly demand of tires is DTM is equal to A into TPVM plus B into SPL6M, where A, B, and C are constants to be determined from the data. This model has value for forecasting only if TPVM and SPL6M, the two casual variables, are known at the time the forecast is desired. This requirement is expressed by saying that these variables will be leading. Also, the quality of it is determined by the correlation between the predictor and the predicted variables. Commonly used indicators of the economic climate such as Consumer's Price Index, Wholesale Price Index, Gross National Product, population, and per capita income are often used in econometric models because these are easily available from published records. Model parameters are estimated by usual regression procedures similar to the ones described in models on historical data. Construction of these structural and econometric models is generally difficult and more time-consuming as compared to simple time series regression models. Nevertheless, they possess the advantage of portraying the inner mechanics of the demand so that when changes in a certain pertinent factor occur, the effect can be predicted. The main difficulty in casual models is the selection or identification of proper variables which should exhibit high correlation and be leading for effective forecasting. Time series analysis or stochastic models. The demand or variable of interest when plotted as a function of time yields what is commonly called a time series. This plot of demand at equal time intervals may show random patterns of behavior, and our objective in models on historical data was to identify the basic underlying pattern that should be used to explain the data. After hypothesizing a model, linear, parabolic, or other, Regression was used to estimate the model parameters using the criterion of minimizing the sum of squares of errors. Another method often used in time series analysis is to identify four major components in a time series. They are: number 1, secular trend, for example, long-term growth in market. Number 2, cyclical fluctuation, for example, due to business cycles. Number 3, seasonal variation, for example, woolens where demand is seasonal. And number 4, random or irregular variation. The observed value of the time series could then be expressed as a product or some other function of all these factors. Another treatment that may be given to a time series is to use the framework developed by Box and Jenkins in 1976, in which a stochastic model of the autoregressive or AR variety, moving average or MA variety, mixed autoregressive moving average variety, that is ARMA, or an integrated autoregressive moving average variety, that is ARIMA model may be chosen. Stochastic models are inherently complicated and require greater efforts to construct. However, the quality of forecasting generally improves. Computer codes are available to implement the procedures. Forecast control. Whatever be the system of forecast generation, it is desirable to monitor the output of such a system to ensure that the discrepancy between the forecast and actual values of demand lies within some permissible range of random variations. From past data, the system generates a forecast which is subjected to modification through managerial judgment and experience. The forecast is compared with the current data when it becomes available, and the error is washed or monitored to assess the adequacy of the forecast generation system. The moving chart is a useful statistical device to monitor and verify the accuracy of a forecasting system. The control chart is easy to construct and maintain. Such a control chart tells three important things about a demand pattern. Number 1, whether the past demand is statistically stable. Number 2, whether the present demand is following the past pattern. And number 3, if the demand pattern has changed, the control chart tells us how to revise the forecasting method. As long as the plotted error points keep falling within the control limits, it shows that the variations are due to chance causes and the underlying system of forecast generation is acceptable. When a point goes out of control, there is reason to suspect the validity of the forecast generation system, which should be revised to reflect these changes. Now let's summarize the unit. The unit has emphasized the importance of forecasting in all planning decisions, be the long-term, medium-term, or short-term. For long-term planning decisions, techniques like technological forecasting, collecting opinions of experts as in Delphi, or opinion polls using personal interviews or questionnaires have been surveyed. For medium and short-term decisions, apart from subjective and intuitive methods, there is a greater variety of mathematical models and statistical techniques that could be profitably employed. There are methods like moving averages or exponential smoothing that are based on averaging of past data. Any suitable mathematical function or curve could be fitted to the demand history by using least squares regression. Regression is also used in estimation of parameters of causal or econometric models. Stochastic models using Box-Jenkins methodology are a statistically advanced set of tools capable of more accurate forecasting. Finally, forecast control is very necessary to check whether the forecasting system is consistent and effective. The moving range chart has been suggested for its simplicity and ease of operation in this regard.
We were listening to the audiobook by the School of Management Studies IGNOU for MBA program, course code MMPC 005, Quantitative Analysis for Managerial Applications. Voiceover by Harpreet Kaur. Edited by Savita. Program assisted by Tarannum Jahan and Jagbandhu Jana. Program produced by Dr. Manoj Kumar Singh. This program was brought to you by Electronic Media Production Center of Indira Gandhi National Open University.